Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I will talk about HR in media. Let me start from talking a bit about myself. So I'm coming, as Zahar already mentioned, from Human Capital Consulting, where I worked on in a number of industries. After my MBA, I did transition to tech industry. I currently work at Expedia as a product manager, and in my spare time, I had the research at the FIX. The passion for people and people management is still with me, and I think it's as relevant as ever. And in my absolutely free time, I'm also an absolutely rookie mother of a 3-month-old. So if I lose my train of thought, I'm gonna blame it on my little Malanka and on lack of sleep. I'm sure all the parents in the room will share this experience with me and understand. Okay, and so what I'm going to be talking about today is based on our recent benchmarking report that we have conducted in Ukraine among the independent digital media. We have very ambitious plans to run those reports in multiple European countries. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. We have a fabulous research team ready to, conquer the world of HR media in media. I'll pause for a second in case you're looking at the contact, but we'll share them later. Okay, so let me start. So why are we talking about HR in the media conference? Well, many surveys of CEOs have identified that key talent and key capabilities and skills are extremely high of CEO and executive agenda. One of such reports is PwC CEO report, which says that 77% of CEOs see the availability of key skills as the biggest threat to their business. And yet, based on our report, we see that only 1/3 of independent media have HR manager. And I guess Yuri being one of those rare birds that can fly to the middle of Dnipro, as a famous, Ukrainian writer wrote, something that is probably lost on the international audience. I apologize. And even when we have HR managers in media, they're all often focused on, skills like HR admin or recruiting, and often overlook the strategic question of attracting, developing, and retaining key talent. And that's kind of a shame. Because media is an industry based on talent. Media companies don't have any fixed assets or anything. It's all based on talent, and the success of the media is largely dependent on the key capabilities and skills. And yet we see huge turnover. On average, 22%, which is similar to what industries with a large amount of unskilled workers see. And it can be up to over 60% in some media outlets. So imagine half of your people stand up and leave in a year. And that's a huge cost. That's a cost that you don't necessarily see on the balance sheet, but it's a huge cost in terms of time and effort of the executives and key talent to recruit, on board, train those new employees that come and go on a continuous basis. And the people go not only to the other media company, but also globally to some independent platforms, as well as to other industries. More and more, there is a huge demand on the communication skills in many other industries. And what's interesting to note that One other challenge for media companies is they all often do not know who they're losing and whether they want or not those people to leave, because only less than half of companies have any kind of regular performance appraisal. And this is reflected also in compensations. About 4% of annual compensation is performance linked of any kind, if we exclude the salespeople. So, while globally companies invest more and more in performance management and ensuring that employees have clear goals and they're evaluated on both what they achieve and how, and that affects their compensation, their career progression, and other things among. In media, we don't see this trend, which is a gap and an opportunity at the same time. In Ukraine, what we saw an interesting among the key benefits is training and company loans. And I find that interesting because globally companies focus more and more on building so-called golden handcuffs, which make leaving the company a little bit painful and unlikely for employees. This could include, for example, multi-year share plans or other benefits like medical insurance or life insurance, something that makes the life of employees very comfortable within the company and living a kind of a cost for them. We see that in Ukraine, company loans are something that kind of resembles the longer term elements of compensation, but it's still quite limited, and there is a lot of opportunities for creative benefits within media industry. And the last thought that I want to leave you with is that when people say talent in media, often we mean journalists and editors. And that's largely true because about 70% of employees within media outlet are editors and journalists and so on. However, in the digital world nowadays, the success of media is more and more dependent on other digitally native functions like data and product and community management and digital marketing. And those people are not looking exclusively on media industry. They are in demand across industries, and in many industries like tech, for example, they see much better compensation packages. They see much more advanced HR practices, and as a result, we see a kind of a big challenge for media of how to attract top talent. And I think the media that can get it right can win at the game and beat the competition. Somehow HR became a hidden treasure and hidden opportunity for media unexpectedly for such a talent-dependent industry. I'll stop here for questions. If you want to email us afterwards, here's our contacts. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariia. Yeah, please, everyone, please feel free to write questions in the chat. I will start from one from me. You mentioned that like only a third of the people who were participating in the report mentioned they have HR manager. So my question would be, how should media managers benefit from these kind of reports, given that not often they don't even have the kind of HR function built in their companies? What are the next steps they should do when they receive this kind of industry data?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I guess in a way, not having an HR means there is no single person who is thinking about managing talent exclusively. Some of the functions, as we can see again in our report, are divided across executives, and for them, that is not their main job to manage, to do kind of human resources. and having good data can make their life much easier. Like, for example, understanding what the org structure, the best practice or structure can look like, what are the typical OKRs or KPIs and so on. So I think while you might not have a dedicated person, the people question is still very relevant for any media or in fact any company that relies on talent for a competitive advantage.
Great. So we got a question from the audience. Olga Royenko is asking, what key KPIs are the regular practice for editorial staff?
This is a great question. In fact, we had a few debates with participants when we were discussing the report around whether journalists should or should not have OKRs or KPIs. And we have a few examples in the report, but I would also want to invite the other speakers today to maybe share their practices in that area.
I'm happy to jump in with an example if that's okay, Zaha.
Yes, please.
So look, I think there's a couple of them. Basically, one thing to sort of bear in mind is that, you know, whenever you run into people in the media managers who are complaining about, you know, KPIs as being something bad, they give you example of bad KPIs, right? And so bad KPIs that can be, you know, the number of clicks that people generate, you know, the number of views and things like that. I mean, if you're running an online portal where the whole business model is just based on getting lots of clicks and clickbait is what you want to do, then maybe, you know, clicks are the KPI that you should use. But for most media, that's not the case. And so usually what you see is you want, you know, either something that is based on the amount of subscriptions or the amount of, you know, engagement that a story gets. So you want basically stories that after people read them, they kind of feel like this, oh my God, I need to do something. I need to act in some way, right? And so you want something that essentially leads to a reader action. The other kind of KPIs that, you know, you want to look for, and that's sort of, you know, there's actually a lot of great materials about what the FT does. So they want writers to write stories that are really interesting and that are going to be read to the end, right? So they look at the amount of, you know, people who open the article and read all the way until the end, or, you know, so basically quality reads is also something that you want, right? The other sort of, you know, category of KPIs that you might get for journalists specifically is around sort of engaging the community and things like that. That's kind of growing as more and more media have membership models. You know, they also get KPIs, or actually even more commonly OKRs, that are based around, you know, I want this many people to sort of engage with our story, or this many people to write back. It's really sort of diving into the quality. And so I think that the main point here is you know, you can have bad KPIs, right? But that's the same way as you can have a bad car, right? Just because there are bad cars doesn't mean that cars are not useful. And it's kind of the same thing with KPIs and OKRs. And the other thing that I would add here is that, you know, as media, we tend to have a problem that we're so much focused on the newsroom that we forget about the rest of the company. But the rest of the company is really, really important to making sure that the newsroom is actually successful. And so, you know, whether it's product, marketing, finances, you know, even human resources, all of these people should have, you know, best practices when it comes to setting goals and managing performance. And that's something that very newsroom focused managers often forget about.